The first time I heard the word vacation cabins, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it sounded absurd. My lake, yes, mine, had always been more than water and mud. It was memory, legacy, and promise, wrapped into a single wide mirror that caught the sky. My father had built the dam with his bare hands, and as a boy, I'd watched him shape the flow of nature into something beautiful, something ours. For years, that lake was where children learned to swim, where lovers carved their initials into tree bark, where neighbors gathered on hot summer nights. It wasn't fancy, but it was alive. It had roots deeper than any foundation. Then came the HOA. At first, it was just a whisper. They're planning something big. People in town spoke with half-truths and nervous grins. I didn't think much of it until one morning. I drove out to the ridge and saw surveyors in neon, vests staking the land around the lake. That day, I realized they weren't whispering dreams. They were drawing blueprints. The plan was outrageous. 139 vacation cabins, an entire mini-resort slapped right onto the water's edge. To them, it was profit. To me, it was theft. I tried to fight. I stood at meetings, I raised my voice. I showed them photos of kids catching fish off the pier, families barbecuing on the banks. I told them, this lake isn't just water, it's blood in our veins. But HOA board members only smiled politely, adjusted their ties, and talked about community growth and revenue potential, words as cold as their intentions. It wasn't long before bulldozers rolled in. Trees that had been standing longer than I'd been alive fell like toothpicks. Gravel roads appeared where there used to be soft trails. Soon, the cabins rose up like a rash across the shoreline. Wooden, boxes with perfect windows and decks, all lined in smug symmetry. The worst part wasn't even the cabins. It was the people. Every weekend, waves of strangers arrived. They parked their shiny SUVs, carried coolers, lit fires, and blasted music across the water until midnight. The lake that once sang with frogs and crickets now screamed with laughter, shouts, and drunken echoes. My lake. I'd sit on my porch, staring at the water, trying to swallow my anger. I'd tell myself, this too shall pass. But it didn't. With every cabin finished, with every family that moved in for a getaway, the lake slipped further from my hands. One night, I walked down to the dam. The wheel stood tall, rusted, but strong. My father's fingerprints were still on it, at least in my mind. I touched the cold iron, and a thought struck me. This is still mine. This is still under my control. That thought scared me and thrilled me. Over the weeks, that thought grew louder until it wasn't a thought anymore. It was a voice, a whisper that curled around my heart. If they want to take everything, give them what they've asked for. Let them see what this lake is capable of. I didn't act yet. Instead, I watched. I studied. I counted the cabins, 30, then 50, then 80. By the time they reached 139, the lake had become unrecognizable, and so had I. That's when the storm came. Dark clouds rolled in, low and heavy. Rain hammered the water, wind bent the trees. From my window, I saw the cabins standing there, smug and silent against the fury of the sky, and something inside me snapped. I put on my boots, grabbed my flashlight, and walked down to the dam. Each step was heavy, but my mind was clear. I wasn't just a man anymore. I was the keeper of the flood. I stood at the wheel, the storm screaming in my ears, and wrapped my hands around the metal. My father's voice echoed in me. This lake is ours. Protect it. I turned the wheel. The wheel groaned as I forced it open, its rusted gears grinding like an old animal waking from sleep. Then the sound came, a deep rumble that rose from beneath the earth itself. Water surged, first in a trickle, then in a roar. The dam gates opened. I stepped back as the lake, my lake, heaved forward like a beast breaking its chains. A wall of brown water crashed downriver, ripping through brush and earth, slamming against the first row of cabins. Logs and debris churned in the current. Porch lights flickered and died. The cabins went one by one. Walls splintered, roofs caved, decks ripped away like matchsticks. Shouts filled the night. Men yelling, women screaming, children crying as they scrambled for high ground. Their getaway paradise turned to chaos in minutes. I should have felt guilt. I should have felt horror. Instead, I felt silence inside me. Not peace exactly, just silence. The kind that comes when justice is raw and unstoppable. The storm raged on as if the sky itself agreed with me. Rain pounded the ruins. Wind carried the sound of panic far across the valley. People gathered on the shore, their faces pale, clutching each other as their weekend homes disappeared into the flood. By morning, it was over. The water calmed, spreading wide and muddy across the valley floor. Where 139 cabins once stood, there was nothing but shattered wood and silence. The lake had taken itself back. I stood on the ridge, soaked to the bone, watching the aftermath. For the first time in years, the lake looked like itself again, wild, untamed, breathing. No artificial decks, no laughter echoing through the night. Just water, trees, and sky. But then came the weight. My hands trembled as I realized what I had done. Lives hadn't been lost, thank God, but homes had. People's savings, dreams, summers, gone in a single night because of my hand on the wheel. Was I right? Or had I become the very thief I hated? That question burned in me for days. The town whispered. Some called me a monster. Others called me a hero. A few old-timers, the ones who remembered my father, came to me quietly and said, "You only gave the lake back to itself." Still, I knew the truth. Vengeance is never clean. The HOA never rebuilt. Insurance companies pulled out. The cabins rotted where they fell, and slowly the land healed. Grass grew over the wreckage. Birds returned. Fish darted in the shadows again. The lake became a place of silence once more. Years later, children from town still come to swim. Couples still carve their initials into the trees. Families still barbecue on the shore. The difference is now they know whose lake this is. Not the HOAs, not developers. Not even mine. It belongs to nature. And maybe that's the lesson. Some things are not meant to be owned. Not by money, not by power, not even by tradition. Some things are sacred, and if you try to take them, they will rise up against you in ways you can't imagine. I still walk down to the dam sometimes. The wheel is rustier now, untouched for years. I lay my hand on it and whisper to my father, I kept it safe. Maybe not the way you would have wanted, but I kept it safe. Then I turn back toward town, knowing that while the cabins are gone, the story remains. A story of loss, of rage, of consequence, and of a lake that refused to be tamed. If you've read this far, ask yourself, what would you protect if it were threatened? Your land, your family, your values? Would you have the courage to stand up even if it meant standing alone? Don't wait for someone else to speak for what matters. Take your stand now. Protect your roots, your history, your voice before someone decides to build their cabins on your lake.